Once upon a time, there lived a poor widow, and she had a son, Jack, and a cow, Belyanka. The cow gave milk every morning, and the mother and son sold it in the bazaar, and that was how they lived. But once Belyanka did not give milk, and they did not have food. Mom decided to sell the cow and open a shop with the proceeds. Jack took the rein in his hands and led the cow to the market. No sooner had he arrived than he met some wonderful old man. He said he would like to trade Jack's cow for beans. And with these words, he took out a handful of some strange beans from his pocket. The old man said these beans are magical. They need to be planted in the evening, and by morning they will grow to the very sky. Jack became very interested and agreed. The boy came home early. Mother was very angry that he gave the dairy cow in the whole neighborhood for a handful of some nasty beans. But Jack remembered the old man's words and decided that there was nothing to do, and planted beans in the yard. He went up to his attic sad, and fell asleep. In the morning, Jack woke up and saw something like a large tree in the yard. And this, it turns out, his beans sprouted, and the huge stem continued to grow upward until it grew to the sky. Jack jumped onto the stem and climbed up like a ladder. He climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed until, at last, he reached the sky. There he saw a long and wide road that led him to a huge castle. Jack went to his gate and knocked. The gate opened, and a tall woman stood on the threshold. Stuttering with fear, the boy asked for something for breakfast. The giantess let him in, but warned him not to catch the eye of her husband, because he is a cannibal. She took Jack to the kitchen. But before he had time to eat even half of his breakfast, suddenly the whole house shook from someone's steps. The boy was not taken aback and instantly jumped into the furnace. And at that very moment, the cannibal entered the room. Well, he was as big as a mountain. The cannibal took out 2 bags of gold from a huge chest and sat down to count the coins. He counted and counted, finally began to nod off, and began to snore. Then Jack quietly climbed out of the oven, crept past the cannibal, grabbed 1 bag of gold, and rushed to the beanstalk. He threw the bag down, and he began to go down the stem lower and lower, until, finally, he found himself at his house. Jack told his mother everything that had happened to him, and handed her a bag of gold. They began to live on the money that was in the bag. But eventually the sack was empty and Jack decided to try his luck one more time at the top of the beanstalk. One fine morning, he got up early and climbed a beanstalk. The man-eater's wife stood at the threshold of the huge castle. She said that she would not let him in, because the last time her husband had lost a bag of gold. But all the same, she took pity on the poor boy, and let him into the castle. Suddenly the footsteps of a giant were heard, and Jack again hid in the furnace. The cannibal entered and told his wife to bring the hen that lays the golden eggs. The giantess brought it, and the ogre ordered the chicken to lay, and she laid the golden egg. The pleased giant began nodding and snoring. Then Jack climbed out of the oven, grabbed the golden chicken, and rushed to the beanstalk. The boy returned home. He showed his mother a wonderful chicken, and they began to live selling golden eggs. But soon it seemed to Jack that this was not enough. And he again decided to try his luck at the top of the beanstalk. This time the boy climbed into the castle through the window. He jumped into a copper cauldron and hid. The cannibal and his wife entered the room. The giant smelled the boy, and they rushed to look for him in the oven. But he was not there. They searched every nook and cranny, but they didn't think to look into the copper cauldron. Desperate to search, the ogre ordered his wife to bring a golden harp and put it on the table. Under her beautiful sounds, the cannibal snored. Then Jack quietly climbed out of the cauldron, grabbed the golden harp and rushed to the door. But the harp played loudly and woke the cannibal. Jack ran at breakneck speed, leaping onto a beanstalk, and the giant in pursuit. Jack went down to his house and yelled at his mother to carry the axe. The mother ran out with an axe in her hands. The boy grabbed the axe and began to chop the beanstalk. The ogre felt the stem swing violently and stopped. Then Jack struck again with an axe and cut the beanstalk. It swayed and collapsed, and the ogre fell to the ground and crashed. From that day on, Jack and his mother never knew poverty again. But the boy was very sorry that, because of their greed, they almost paid with their lives. He promised that he would never steal again, and would work hard for the good of the family. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 12 beautiful daughters. They all lived together in a large and beautiful room. The king was very fond of princesses, and raised them in severity. When the daughters went to bed, he closed their door with a key. But every morning something strange happened. When the princesses left the room, their shoes were so ruined as if they had been dancing all night long. The king had to buy new shoes for his daughters every day. No one could solve the riddle of the princesses. Once the king promised to marry one of his daughters if someone would solve the mystery of the shoes. In addition, the winner will become the king's heir. But the daredevil has only 3 days and 3 nights for this, otherwise he will be executed. Many young men of the kingdom, as well as foreign princes, came to try their luck. Day and night they guarded the doors of the 12 princesses' bedroom. But none of them could solve this riddle. And so, another young man decided to try his luck. On the way to the palace, he met an old grandmother.
Hello.
She was very hungry and asked for a piece of bread. The young man gave the old woman all his food. Grandmother was very happy because no one had ever been so kind to her. As a token of gratitude, she presented the young man with a magic cloak that made the one who wears it invisible.
Cool.
In addition, the old woman ordered not to drink anything that the princesses would give. The young man thanked her and went to the castle. When the young man arrived, the king greeted him with joy and led him to the princess's room. The young man began to guard their door. Towards evening, the older sister offered him a glass of wine. The boy on the way was very hungry and thirsty. He forgot about the words of the old grandmother and drank from the glass without hesitation. Soon he felt sleepy and fell asleep. The young man slept all night, and when he woke up it was already morning. He realized that the princess had put sleeping pills in his glass. And then the young man remembered the words of the old woman. Towards evening, the youngest sister offered him a glass of wine. But this time he was careful. The young man took the glass and thanked the princess. When she left, he poured the wine into a vase nearby. When night fell, the young man put on his magic cloak and immediately became invisible. He quietly walked into the princess room and saw that all the princesses were wearing their best ball gowns. Then they went to the wall and began to listen if the young man was sleeping. The young man played along with them and began to snore softly. When the girls were convinced that he was asleep, the older sister moved her bed. At the same place, a secret entrance opened, and the princesses began to descend into it. The young man followed them. When the steps ended, they found themselves in an amazing forest. The leaves on the trees were pure gold. The young man took one twig with him and continued to follow the princesses. After a long journey, they stopped by the lake. There the girls were already waiting for 12 handsome princes in their boats. When the princesses boarded their boats, the invisible youth also jumped into one of them. The princes transported them across the river, and they ended up at a huge, beautiful castle. Beautiful music sounded from it. Entering the castle, the princesses began to dance. They danced relentlessly all night long. Of course, this made their shoes unusable. In the morning, the princesses sailed on boats back to the side of the house. They walked through the woods again, and up the long stairs to their room. The young man was happy that he had solved the riddle of the shoes of the 12 princesses. Soon the king appeared to the young man. The young man told him everything he saw.
No.
The king at first did not believe him, but he showed a golden twig from a magic tree. The king realized that the young man was telling the truth and kept his promise. He allowed the young man to marry any of the 12 princesses. The young man chose the youngest sister because they fell in love at first sight. After some time, the young man and the young princess got married. And they lived happily ever after.